Hello everyone, Glenn Wittenberg here. Been a while since I've done a video. Been pretty busy at work and had some projects going on here at the house. One of which is going to 10 gigabit in my home lab. So what we have here is a quick little diagram I slapped together of what my proposed solution was going to be before I started this project. So you'll see here at the top, everything up here is 10 gigabit. This is kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to connect my PC with my NAS Plex server and my ESXi, and then, again, connect the ESXi with the NAS and the NAS to the ESXi, etc. I wanted to do this fairly inexpensive, so I kind of chose a way where I could just use three 10 gigabit cards and do direct attached cabling between them, and kind of do some magical routing and accomplish everything I needed without having to buy a switch. So below this, everything below here on the 1 gigabit Ethernet network, I pretty much already had in place. Everything I did have in place already. So I have my PC, my NAS Plex server, and my ESXi server all into the Cisco SG310 switch. I also have not only I have one network card with the 192.168.10 address. You can see here that's kind of my main address down here for my 1 gigabit. But I also had a separate network card in here that I used in my ESXi that I used a VLAN of 10.10.10. Zero network. All these are /24 subnets. So I kind of did that to kind of play around with some pfSense routing in here as well. So I could use, double network cards out of the pfSense, one for the 10.10.10 and one for 192.168.10. And on the other side, kind of on the WAN side and or the LAN side as well. And then I did another 192.168.20.0 off here as well. So that kind of allowed me a little segmentation where I could play around with some routing and stuff still in the same switch. So that was kind of nice. But everything else is pretty much just right off the 192.168.10 network. I have my Fire TV set-top box with the Plex app on it. Do a lot of movie streaming on that. And then, of course, I've got internet from Cox going up to the cable modem that they provide, and then going into a pfSense router back into here as well. That's my connection out. Other devices on here as well, other PCs and printers and, kids' Xbox, stuff like that. But didn't really put that in there. So, but you kind of get a representation here. So what I wanted to do is playing with my ESXi server. I wanted to start doing images and putting them on my NAS on the ZFS pool on there. So, in order to do that and function, properly, I guess, with enough speed that I would be satisfied with, was going to require a lot of upgrades. One of which was to get rid of the 1 gigabit connection between them all and do 10 gig. So I went with 10G Tech, their 10 gigabit dual port CNA cards, converged network adapters. And so if I put dual cards in each, I had enough ports I could connect everything, right? So on the one network here, I have 192.168.80. Again, that's the SFP small form factor port direct attached cable with a 24 gauge that goes into the NAS Plex on one port there. That network is 192.168.80. Then down here, off my PC, off the second port, I have a connection to my ESXi. That's on the 192.168.70.0. And then, of course, from the NAS to the ESXi, I have a third network of 192.168.90 in there as well. So this allows me to actually mount via NFS a pool a data store, I guess. I think it's what it's called in ESXi terms, to map over. I could store my images over the 10 gig onto the NFS via NFS onto the ZFS storage pool. So that should give me a lot of throughput. Of course, I got to look out for disk I/O and some other factors over here, but at least I got enough bandwidth to run images back across here, right? So, regular 1 gigabit's going to give me about 112, megs. I think it is what I was, 112, 114 megs without running large packets is what I was getting on that. So this should greatly improve that speed there. So it'll bury an SSD, right? So I'm kind of limited by, what my storage is going to be on my NAS here to run these images off of. And then, of course, I can manage everything and upload ISOs to the different data stores, etc., from my PC over this 10 gig of 192.168.70. And then, of course, I can, from my PC as well, touch into my NAS and, do backups of my PC on here at, however fast the disk I/O is going to go, right? So my big bottleneck here is disk I/O, whether it be an SSD or RAID setup on the ZFS pools, etc. I'm probably never going to be able to saturate these 10 gig links. So that's kind of cool, having your bottleneck be hard drives and SSD drives, flash storage, rather than the 1 gigabit network, which is what it was before. So that was kind of the plan that I had in mind. So I started doing some research and looking into things, figured out that I'm going to have to really redo my NAS. I'm going to have to add more VDEVs to the ZFS pool, and I'm going to have to get a different motherboard so I can put the 10 gig card in, because I got a little Node 304 case now with one slot on the board that I'm using for my Supermicro SAS SATA HBA controller to take care of the 4 Western Digital 3 terabyte drives that were in that. I am at 6 now, so I got 3 VDEVs in the new case and everything. So I had to get another motherboard for that, and I wanted to go ahead and add some more memory to it, etc. Make sure I'm up to speed for this project. My ESXi, I was doing pretty good. I have an available. I didn't really have any adding cards in this, right? So I've already got this in a nice big case. Define R4, I think this one is, in my PC, and the NAS are in Define R5 cases. But I had a 16 PCIe 3.0 16X slot free on this one, right? Because I didn't have any of the cards in there, so I could put my 10 gig card in there. So, but in here, I wanted to also get a motherboard where I could, easily have at least X8 speeds on the PCIe 3 for both my slots here. One for the HBA controller, the Supermicro SAS SATA controller, and the other one for the 10 gig CNA as well. PC-wise, I needed to do the same. I've got a NVIDIA 750 Ti card, and then I also wanted to put, I need to put the CNA in there as well, and the requirements on that are X8 as well. So I'm going to have to get a new motherboard for my PC, and I'm just going to have to completely rebuild my NAS. Like I said, it's in a Node 304 with a one expansion slot motherboard on it, and didn't really have enough slots for memory, etc. So that was the big project, is rebuilding that, and then just putting another motherboard in my PC, and then kind of adding the cards, buying all the cables, etc. up here. So that's kind of what I had planned. So I did a lot of research, and here in the next clip, we're going to go through the NAS piece of that for that build, show you what I did there, and what the final product was, and then maybe show you some pictures of the upgrade after the PC and the upgrade after the ESXi, and we'll go from there. So first off, on the NAS, I had to get another case. As I mentioned before, I have everything in a Practical Design Node 304 case. Very nice case. But for what I needed to do, obviously it just does not have the size for it. And I'll have some pictures later of the existing NAS before this, right? Kind of the before picture, and got some disassembly on that. So you can see what I mean as far as space goes on that. So I really like the Fractal Design line, and I think they built some really nice cases, good quality. And the Define R4 and R5s I like a lot. For the simple reason I kind of, standardize on this is they have some really great padding, and they run a really silent cases in there. So let me click on this one and enlarge it. You can see here that on the top and all the side panels and stuff have this black kind of a matte coating on it, right, like a padding, and it's a sound deadener. Really works great on there. So it comes with one fan in the front and one fan in the back. In all my cases, though, I do have an additional fan. I put all the fans in there, so I got two up front, one in the back, and then of course I have the heatsink CPU cooler fan in there as well. I don't use any fans at the top or any fans at the bottom at all, and I get some pretty good airflow through here like that. So pretty happy with that. Another nice thing about this case, as you can see here, if I leave all the drive carriers in there, I do have room for 8 3.5-inch drives right here. You can put a couple 5 1/4s. You can even put adapters and put a couple more 3.5s up here, but I don't have that. But I can put 8 3.5 drives in here, and then on the back side, I can even mount 2 more 2.5 solid-state drives on the back of this. So kind of nice. So my final plans for my NAS is to have all 8 drives full of Western Digital 3 terabyte red drives in here, NAS drives, and then I have my using my existing 128 gig Samsung 850 Pro SSD, and I got that mounted to the back of the case in there as well. So at this time, I only have 6 drives in there, so I only have 3 VDEVs. I'm going to put another one in there as well, probably in the next couple weeks. But I have all the, all the power ready, and the SATA ports and everything else already, zip tied on the back of these carriers here, ready to go. So I can just plug the new drives in and expand my ZFS pool with the 2 additional VDEVs, or the 1 additional VDEV, the 2 additional drives. So that's it. I'm not going to go a whole bunch on the case. You can always go to Fractal Design and check it out. But they have pretty nice fans. I like the way the doors open in the front. It's really easy to clean the screens on the bottom, and if you open up the door, you can pop off the screen in the front and clean those. They do catch quite a bit of lint in here as well. So very nice cases. So now that I have my case picked out, I had to come up with a motherboard. I've always been a fan of Supermicro and used them a lot in their server end. I didn't really go with a server board this time with these guys. I kind of did a little research and poked around, and I was having really good luck with kind of the non-ECC memory. It's less expensive, and if you get good quality, it doesn't become so much of a factor, for data corruption. Not to mention that ZFS does some checksumming and et cetera in there as well, which also adds to the data protection. And again, this is just a home lab, so I'm trying to keep the cost down as much as possible, but still get some quality stuff in there, right, that I can work with. So I went with their new C7 Z170 OCE board. It's kind of designed for overclocking, even though the BIOS is really kludgy. I'm still on the first version of the BIOS there, so it was kind of problematic getting things booted up on USB to get things installed properly, but I did work through that, and they even opened up a ticket with Supermicro, and they've acknowledged some of the problems, and I guess they got an update coming for the BIOS as well. But after everything was installed on this, it's turning out to be a really great board. I haven't had any of the problems with it at all. It's super stable, does everything I wanted to do. One of the big factors here is that I can put 64 gig of RAM in there, right? Pretty high speed memory for just 4 DIMM slots. So I like that part. Plan on maxing that out. And then also another key thing in here is you won't see this on a lot of motherboards either. And this is just I think this ran me like $298 by the time I got it shipped. So it's about a $300 motherboard. But the nice thing about it is that it's got three PCIe 3.0 X16 slots in it, and you can actually run the first and the third PCIe 3.0 slots at 16 and 16, right? So to keep the middle one empty, you can have two X16 cards in there at full speed. Pretty nice. If you use all three, you get a 16 and an 8 and an 8. You know, what I have, I'm using the first two slots, so I'm doing a 16 and an 8, and with the extra slot at the bottom, you know, available to me for another 8-by card, PCIe 3 8-by card if I need it. I've got my Supermicro SAS SATA HBA controller in the first slot, and then I've got the 10 gig CNA in the second slot. Both of those cards only require 8X, so I'm fine there, right? So I'm really not even taking advantage of the first 16 slot. I'm still running it at 8 just because of the card that's in there. So, you know, lots of USB, you know, etc. One thing I didn't like about this as well is that it doesn't have just a regular VGA port on it. So I thought that was kind of wild. So now I'm kind of with my little monitor that I move around to some of these machines to do, you know, troubleshooting and installs and play with. I had to get the adapter for it as well because it doesn't have just a regular VGA port on the display. Lots of other stuff it does, you know, it's supposed to be an overclocker, etc. I don't do any of that. I'm just running it, you know, pretty much stock on here. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm using XMP on it for the memory, so I can take advantage of the speed of the memory that I bought, and that seems to be working out pretty well for me as well. So there's the board. That's what I chose, and that's what I got. So seeing as how I going from a 4th gen Intel i5 to a new motherboard, which requires a 6th gen with the Z170. I had to get new CPU and new memory for it as well. So CPU I chose was the i5 6600K. The K can be overclocked versus a non-K. They just happened to have a sale on this one. It was just a couple dollars more than the non-K, and I figured, hey, if I ever want to, you know, reprovision this and do something with it and decide I want to, you know, do some overclocking, at least I have a CPU that can do that. So that's the chip I chose, was the Intel Core i5 6600K. It has a base of 3.5 gigahertz and can go all the way up to 3.9 gigahertz. It is just a 4-core, no hyper-threading. That's the i5 way. So should be more than enough. If it was just to serve, you know, files and run the ZFS pool like a regular, you know, quote, just NAS would, then that's pretty much overkill. But being with having Plex on it and running 10 gig as well, I thought maybe the extra horses are needed as well. And I had really good luck with the 4th gen that I had in there. I think it was a 4690 or yeah, I think it was a 4690 processor that I had in there before, and I had really good luck with that. I never had any problems with transcoding or anything else on my Plex side, so I was pretty happy with that. So I just went back with the i5, but I just went with the newer gen, of course, to work with the new motherboard, the 6600K. And let's see here. I got the memory I chose for this. And again, I filled this up. So I went with the 64 gig kit of the Corsair Vengeance LPX DDR4. It runs at 2666 megahertz. You can see that price tag's fairly expensive, huh? But I got plenty of memory in there. If you know anything about ZFS, it loves memory, and the more memory you give it, you know, the better it runs, right? So I didn't really want it to starve for memory and you know, have to go to disk as little as possible, right? So I just decided to go ahead and fill this dude up with the RAM. So I do have a 64 gigabyte of this whole kit in that board as well with the new CPU. So as I mentioned before, I do have a 128 gig Samsung SSD 850 Pro in my NAS that I use for boot and OS. But all my ZFS, all my storage is on again the Western Digital red 3 terabyte drives, and I have all those plugged into this controller here, the SAS 2LP MV8. It does. I have 2 expanders of fan cables on it, right? So each one of these ports will control 4 SATA drives, right? So I can have a maximum of 8 on this card. Again, like I said, I have 6 on it now, so I have a couple extra open that I'll be adding here soon. It's a pretty nice adapter. It does 600 megs per channel, and again, it requires a PCIe X8 interface, so we're good to go on that board there. Not a whole bunch else to say about it here. It's got all the drivers and stuff for it, but I'm using CentOS 7 on my NAS Plex server, and I recognized it immediately, so I didn't have to install the drivers or compile anything. It just right out of the box, plug and play. So that was kind of cool. Really liked that a lot. And here's the Samsung SSD that I have in there, again for my boot and operating system. I love these Samsung drives. Extremely stable. I've never had one DOA or go bad on me yet, and they've always met their performance that they advertise. So really happy with that. So again, it's a small drive, but it's plenty to hold the boot and OS and everything for me as well. So take a look here. Again, I got 6 of these Western Digital red NAS drives, 3 terabytes in there. I got these in a mirrored stripes, so each virtual device, VDEVs is what they're called. I have 2 drives in a mirror, and then I stripe the mirrors across. So I have 6 drives in 3 sets striped out, and when I add the last 2 drives, so I'll have 8 drives and 4 VDEVs striped across all the VDEVs as well. So that gives me the best speed with some pretty good redundancy. So I can lose with the 6 drives now. I can lose a max of 3 drives and still be up and running. But they can't be any 3 drives. It has to be 1 drive on each VDEV. So if I lose 2 drives and they're both on the same VDEV, then I'm done. But this is where you back up your NAS, right? So once a week, and this is what the 10 gig is going to be nice for as well, is I back up. I have another 3 terabyte WD red drive in my PC, and so I don't even have 3 terabytes of data yet on my NAS. So I'm able to every week make a copy of that. I do an rsync across the wire and update anything on that. So if I do have a catastrophic failure and I can't recover my ZFS volume, and I lose all my data, I can always just rebuild and then restore all my data back on there. So I know it's not off-site or nothing a business would try to do, but it does work for me at the home. So it's pretty nice. But so I've been having really good luck with these WD NAS drives, and I know there's some other ones out there. A lot of people are Seagate or Hitachi, etc. But I've been using these, and I've been having super luck. I had one start to go bad on me and give me some smart errors. And when I would scrub my ZFS pool, it would spit out an error now and then. I RMA'd it back to Western Digital, and they sent me a new drive right away. And so I was really happy with that. I make sure that every drive I get in, that I go ahead and register it on their site. So there's just no complaints at all. It's just as simple. Once you have it in there, You click the button, RMA, give the reason, they spit you out a mailing label and an RMA number, and you throw it in the box, and away you go. You get your new drive in a week. So really happy with that. What else we got here? Here's the cards that I got, and actually went to the Amazon site here to show you this because the vendor site has got less information than Amazon does. This is a Chinese deal here, so I was really hesitant to do this, but I went ahead and took a chance, because it was backed by Amazon, right? So if I didn't like it, I could just return it. Amazon is super good at that. And these cards are $159 a piece, right? And what they do is they have the Intel X520 chipsets on them. And I mean, they just you can right out of the box put the Intel drivers on them and everything, and they work flawlessly. I haven't had any trouble. So I've got 3 of these cards now, and they're all working just super great. I also had some questions, and I emailed these guys online, and they responded back to me within like 12 hours, and we exchanged some emails back and forth, figuring out the proper cables and whether these would work in an X4 and X8 slots, etc. They answered all my questions. Even offered to do 3-day delivery out of China for anything I wanted to go directly through them on, or do any cables or anything like that. So it seems like a really good company, and I've had super good luck with these cards. So at $159 for a dual port 10 gig CNA, you're going to be hard pressed to find a better deal than that. Really having luck with these guys. So really appreciate that. And real quick here, again, the operating system I'm using, CentOS. I'm using the latest CentOS 7. If you guys know anything about CentOS, it's the kind of the early release of a Red Hat. And then the early release of that is, what is it, Ubuntu? No, not Ubuntu. I can't remember. Anyway, there's another one out there as well, so that they're all kind of on the same page there. But Cent is really tight with Red Hat, so you'll see things. Cent's kind of the open source of Red Hat out there. So if you don't have a Red Hat contract and you want Red Hat stuff, Cent is Red Hat. So kind of nice. And also what I'm running on my NAS is Plex. Love this. It's a great app for streaming all your media, whether it be, you got a music library, a movie library, you want to do pictures, etc. You can do it in-house. You can open up a port on your firewall and stream movies on your, any device, your phone, your tablets, your PCs, your whatever, whether you be on your net or off your net, etc. So it's a pretty slick deal there. And then everything on my storage-wise is running on the ZFS pool. I know about that. Oracle is kind of the inventors of ZFS, even though I don't use the true Oracle ZFS because I don't feel like running their software. I'm a kind of a Red Hat Cent guy. I'm doing ZFS on Linux, but basically the same thing, right? So it's kind of an open source deal, and they've ported it to regular Linux as well. I know it's real popular on BSD for a lot of the free NAS and stuff like that that's out there as well. So it's definitely nice. So as you can see here, they claim 2 times the performance at half the price of a proprietary NetApp solution. NetApp is a leader in NASs and online storage, etc. They're definitely somebody that we use at work as well. I see a lot of their boxes hanging around there, and it's a lot less money. And they say it's just a lot faster, a lot less money, and it's got better data recovery options for you as well. Replacing drives is easier. I mean, everything. So, big open source guy. So that's what I decided to use for my storage. So let's take a look at a couple pictures here. Here's my NAS before the upgrade. Again, in a Fractal Design Node 304 case. There's the back of it there. As you can see here, it's the case itself can do 2 expansion slots in there. but the board itself only has one, the one closest in, right? And you can see there that's that Supermicro SAS SATA JBOD HBA card in there to control the hard drives. There it is with the cover off before disassembly, and there's the Supermicro card that's in there as well. And you can see the fan cable coming out the bottom and around, kind of loops back up through and plugs into the 4 hard drives. This will hold 6 drives, 2 in each of these carriers. So I have my 2 Western Digitals in the first one, another 2 over here, the 3 terabyte drives, for a total of 4 in this case. And then I have that 128 gig Samsung SSD in the last one all by itself there. There's a top view of it. You can see things are super, super cramped. Cable management was pretty much not available on this case, so it was a bear to work in. Disassembly, took out all the drive cages, got all those out. There's the 4 drives plus the SSD. Now I have the power supply out of it as well, so you can see in there is the small micro ATX board in there. There's the board out. Got everything pretty much stripped down. And I just kind of put everything in a bag and shoved it all back in there. I'll probably use this case for something in the future. And along with that motherboard and CPU and everything else as well, it's all still together there. So here it is with the heat sink off. Still got thermal grease all over the place. And I cleaned it up a little bit. Heat sink's nice and good. I still got a little bit of thermal grease down in here. I needed to clean up. I did that. I don't think I have a picture of it fully clean, but it's pretty much a board. Only holds a couple DIMMs. It does have, what is it, 4, 5, 6. It only did 5 SATA ports on here as well. So I got 2 here, and then there's another one stashed away somewhere. Oh, there it is right there, yeah. So I got the 1 here, and then we got 4 here. So it'll do 5 onboard SATAs is the max on that. So, you know, it's got a built-in Wi-Fi card and everything on it, too. It's kind of a nice board. It's a gamer board, though, but it did work out really well for me at the time. And there's a box of my goodies. Everything's stripped down. I know all the drives are going to go into the new case. My HBA controller is going to go in the new case. This memory will not. And there is a picture of one of my 10 gig CNA converged network adapter cards. As you can see there, it's a PCI Express. It needs an X8, and there's 2 SFP plus ports on here as well. And there's a picture of the new board that I got in, the C7 Z170 OCE Supermicro. There it is unboxed. It's got kind of a nice little green theme to it there. I've never seen a board look like that. Don't really care. It's in my case, all sealed up. I got no windows on my cases or anything else. They're all silent cases with all the padding on them and everything as well. So didn't really much matter to me. What did matter to me is all the memory it can support, and then these 3 PCIe 3.0 slots. Again, you can do a 16 and a 16, or you can do a 16, 8, and an 8. So I'm running 2 8 cards in the first 2 right now. So here's some of the accessories that it did come with. Came with some SATA cables, driver disc, which of course is outdated when you get them, so you just kind of throw that in the trash. Comes with the header for it as well to go over that, and a quick install guide as well in there. So here's the memory I got for it. That came in. Again, it's the 64 gig kit, a DDR4. Pretty expensive box of memory, but it's working out really well for me. And here's the board with all 4 memory modules in it, my new i5 6600K on it, and as well as the Hyper Evo 212 cooler on it as well. So I like those coolers a lot. I have really good luck with them, and they do manage temperatures really well. So And there it is, booted up. I just kind of threw it on a table, plugged stuff in, put all the memory in it, and was just running on MemTest 86 on it. It took, hours and hours and hours to go through this. I think I probably watched a couple movies, and I don't know, I think I let it run all night and came back the next morning, and it had gone through several passes on all the memory, and everything looked really good on it. So, and there it is on the bench before I even stuck it in the case or anything. And you can see there's my Super Micro SAS SATA HBA controller on there for the drives, and there's my dual port 10 gig CNA converged network adapter on there as well. Having good luck. I like to plug everything in and power it on and just kind of go through some reboot procedures and change things around and see if things are going to get readdressed or stay static, or I'm going to have to change anything around, and what I can expect before I stick it back on the board. As I mentioned before, it was quite difficult to get the operating. I've just reinstalled everything from scratch on here as well, since I had a new chipset and everything too. So I just kind of nuked my SSD drive. I left my all my drives. I label all my drives in order so I could put them all back in order and not have to recreate my ZFS pool and restore all my data, etc. on that. That part worked flawlessly, just like it does in the docs there. It was very, very easy to do. But getting my OS on the SSD, redoing that was difficult. Trying to boot off these USB ports. It just would not boot off these USB ports for my CentOS. Well, on every other computer I had, I tried multiple thumb drives. I tried 2.0, 3.0, switched them up in the slots. Wound up going off a portable CD drive that I had. It did recognize that on the 2.0 slots only, not even on the 3. So there's definitely some issues with the BIOS on these USB slots. And I think it's just for the removable media, whether it be, a USB CD. And you can see here, that's the CD drive right here on the side, and there's a cable for it down there that I wound up finally using to do the install. But once it was installed, I didn't have any problems. Anything else I plugged in here. Matter of fact, I even plugged a USB stick in here afterwards, after I had CentOS 7 loaded on it, and mounted it and moved files off and on to the USB drive. Had absolutely no problem at all. So I don't know, something really weird in the BIOS, but hopefully they get that fixed. But so far, it's once I got the OS on the drives, I haven't had any trouble with it since. There's a quick shot of my transfer from my PC desktop to my ZFS pool that I named MyRAID, and that's going across the wire, 10 gigabit, 486 megs. Hello. Yep. Now the drive itself, the SSD will, do over 500 on the reads. I'm only getting 486. Probably because of some, SMB overhead on that as well. And the reason why I'm getting this speed on the RAID, I don't think my drives and I think this test only had 2 VDIFs and only had the 4 drives, so I know it wouldn't handle that. But I've got all that memory in there, and so it's the memory soaks it all up in the ZIL, and before it writes it to disk. So literally, I can, this was what was I moving? 7.54? I think that's a fairly big file. That's what's remaining, and I'm, almost half done there. So I think it was like a, 10, 12 gig file or something like that I was moving across there, just testing. And, so as long as I have the available RAM for it to, buffer up and, cache for me, then I'm good to go. So that's why I was getting such great speeds out of that. There's my case I'm getting ready to stick everything into. That's the Fractal Design R5. That's the full black one. Doesn't even have the white trays in it or white fans. It's all black. And again, I did stick an extra fan in the bottom of it as well. There's a new power supply I decided to get for it as well. I got the EVGA 750G, NEX 750G. It's a 80 plus gold, and fully modular power supply. It's got really nice the rails on it and stuff worked out really well for powering all my drives as well. So very nice power supply. And here's some extra parts I got. There's my extra, since I'm planning on adding more drives as well. I got the extra expander cable for my SAS SATA. So I already had one of these, and each of them do 4 drives. So I had one cable and 4 drives, so I got this other cable. And I think I got some more drives ordered when I shot this picture, but they weren't in yet. So I was waiting on those. There's the extra fan for the case. And here's some extra memory for something. I don't know what that is. This is just DDR3 memory. So here's some extra cables that I always kind of get, power adapters, the 3-pin extensions for the fans because I have such long ways to go. I like to plug everything in on the motherboard so I can control things through, temperatures and through the BIOS settings and etc. to do the variable speeds rather than plugging them into the switch on the case itself, which gives you kind of a high, medium, low. I like to have things adjust automatically. So if I'm not using the box at all, the things are just idling, which they are most of the time, right? Especially when I'm gone and stuff. The fans spin down to basically nothing, so they use less power, and it's just pure quiet. So I really like that. And we'll jump. I didn't even do any pictures of me doing any type of building on this. So here it is. Everything put in the case. Again, I've just got the 4 drives in this picture. The other 2 were ordered and on the way. But I went ahead and put it together like it was anyway. Came together really nice. Looks pretty good. You can see here I've got my Supermicro SAS SATA HBA card up here with the 2 expander cables and the 4 extra ones up top. Got the power for it already in the back ready to go. And there's the 10 gig CNA down there, converged network adapter down there as well, the dual port. So again, the Hyper 212 Evo cooler, 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM, and this really nice EVGA 80 plus gold fully modular power supply. There's a close-up there. Again, same thing. My SAS SATA HBA card and my 10 gig down there with the little heat sink on it. And here's the back of a couple of my machines. The one on the left is actually my ESXi server. So as you can see, I put the 10 gig card in that in this picture. So I got the dual port there. Also, the onboard Ethernet up here is the 192.168.10. I showed you back in one of the very first shot. And then this card down here is the one that I used for that VLAN, the 10.10.10.10. So this actually has 4 network ports in it. One there, 2 here, and another one there. So and they will all be used. Over here is the back of my NAS. Again, this has dual Intel Ethernets on this Supermicro board. I'm only using one, so I've just disabled the other one for now. And then I've got the dual port converged network adapter down here, the 10 gig, and then this other silver slot is that SAS SATA HBA controller down there for it. So, and there's kind of a picture of the 3 machines. I got my PC over here on the left, my ESXi in the middle, and the NAS on the right. The one on these the bookends, the far left and far right, are Fractal Design Define R5s, and the middle one is my ESXi. That is a Define R4, soon to be Define R5 as soon as I muster up enough energy and time and money to move it over to a new case. And you can see here later we got in, I forget which machine didn't have a card. Oh, I borrowed the card from the ESXi on my PC to run that one test, so I was still short a card. So here's the 3rd card that I ordered, and then my 2 drives came in as well. So now I have 6 drives in my NAS, so with 3 VDEVs. That's pretty much it. I think in the next slide here, I'm going to go ahead and show you some just some layout of my ZFS pool, and then some statistics running on like iPerf, and we'll do some transfers, etc., and just kind of go from there.